Hello and welcome to the last session of the day in the MVP Unlock the Value of System Center and Azure Pack webinar. My name is Gordon McKenna. I'm an MVP in System Center Cloud and Data Center Management. I'm a 10-year veteran, so coming up to my 11th year. I'm also CEO at Microsoft Gold Partner Inframon, who are a cloud transformation specialist. Background-wise, I have 17 years experience in Microsoft management and have personally been involved in some of the largest System Center and Azure deployments in EMEA. I now run one of the world's leading System Center and Azure partners. Some of you might know me as I'm a regular presenter at many Microsoft events such as TechEd and MMS, and also at some community events globally and locally. My email address is gordon@inframon.com if anybody wants to contact me afterwards, and you can also see my Twitter hashtag and my blog at the bottom as well. So what is it that I'm going to cover today? Well, basically you've been learning all about the foundation stones of a private cloud and how you can build out the infrastructure and use management tools to manage it. Well, now I'm going to talk about how you can manage your private cloud with a very exciting Microsoft technology called Windows Azure Pack. So what's Windows Azure Pack all about? So if you look at Windows Azure technology in Microsoft data centers, it delivers kind of enterprise class, cost-effective, open and interoperable systems. And what Microsoft have done is bought this technology on premise so that you can run this off the top of Windows Server and System Center. So the kind of elements that you get with Windows Azure Pack are, first of all, a very familiar technology to that as in Windows Azure, as it's about 80 to 90% of the code, but it gives you an on-premise connect to your private cloud infrastructure. It's consistent with Azure from both a dev and an IT pro point of view. It also hooks into your existing virtualization, your management tools, and it also uses the consistent service bus that some of you might know from Windows Azure. One of the things as a service provider, and Windows Azure Pack supports both external service providers who offer PaaS and IaaS services to customers, but also enterprise service providers. And one thing that those service providers want is a multi-tenant cloud. They want the ability to be able to carve the cloud up according to the business units or users that are using that. They also want templated services. They want to run that on standard hardware, and they want an automation element that themes all the way through. Also as well, Azure Pack brings to the table VM portability, so the assets that you create on premise can also be used in Windows Azure. You've got web app portability as well as OData integration via a familiar API, REST API. It also supports Node.js, PHP, ASP.NET, and also common repositories such as GitHub and Bitbucket. And Windows Azure Pack does also support Linux as well. So let's talk about Windows Azure Pack in your data center. Well, as I mentioned earlier, you've been looking at some of the elements in some of the sessions today around building out your storage, your networking, your compute, and then building your services on top of that. Well, Windows Azure Pack really sits in at this services layer and provides you with an admin portal for the IT admin that gives you access to resource clouds, automation, billing, tenant management, and hosting plans. And from a user point of view, you have a tenant portal that gives you access to the essential services that you need to be able to do IT as a service from your cloud. So I always like to use this slide to talk about consistent experiences because it really well describes the differences between Azure and Windows Azure Pack. If we look at Windows Azure, we have a website, app, database and VMs that are delivered up by a subscriber self-service portal. And if any of you have used Windows Azure, you'll know that you go to a portal, you put in your credit card, you subscribe to a load of services, you then get access to the portal which sits on top of the Service Management API, and then through the Service Management API you can get at things like worker roles and VM roles and Service Bus and caching, plus other services such as CDM and media, and all of that sits on top of Microsoft's Windows Azure Fabric. If we look at Azure Pack, well, we have, instead of the Windows Azure Fabric, we have Windows Server 2012 as the underlying fabric layer. And also we use System Center 2012, and particularly the Service Provider Foundation layer to deliver that unique tenant stamping. And we've got workload portability between the two environments. So elements that you create or workloads that you create on Windows Azure Pack on Windows Server 2012 are also portable Windows Azure and vice versa. We then have a common management experience. So Windows Azure Pack uses exactly the same Service Management API as Windows Azure. So the kind of calls that you might make from an OREST API point of view to Windows Azure Pack are the same as you make to Windows Azure. We then have a self-service portal which is the same as Windows Azure. Now obviously from a consumer point of view it's a very same experience. You go in, you access resources, you carve up resources in the same way, but one big difference between Azure Pack and Windows Azure is we need a way of being able to kind of create our services, our plans and our users. So this is actually done via a admin portal as well, and that gives us the same kind of experience. It has the same kind of user experience as Azure as well. Now from a cloud enabled services point of view, we have just a number of services that Azure Pack has: websites, virtual machines, SQL, Service Bus, and also a new element that's actually not on this slide is automation as well. And you know, there's plans for future services to be driven into Windows Azure Pack as well. One final thing as well is a consistent dev experience. So things like Git, Bitbucket, Dropbox, which are available in Windows Azure as repositories, are also available on Windows Azure Pack. So let's take a look at some of the user-ready services that are available. So customers can access either the management portal and they have a self-service experience through that management portal, or they can in fact access directly the OData REST API, and this allows them to have a very similar feel to Azure. And what we have down here is the Windows Azure portal on the left hand side, and on the right hand side we have the Azure Pack Service Management Portal, and as you can see it looks exactly the same. And this is designed really to support Microsoft's Cloud OS, where we have a consistent platform between the customer, so on-premise with Azure Pack, with the service provider for service providers that consume Azure Pack as well, and also a similar platform with Microsoft Azure. And this is a key strategy with Microsoft moving forward, to give you one single experience across all of the different clouds that you might consume. From a user experience point of view, so this is a snap of Windows Azure, and this is us kind of looking in a dashboard type view at a website. You can see that it's a very similar experience looking at a website as well, almost identical in fact in terms of the two. And again, this is designed to give that consistent one experience. So let's take a quick look at Windows Azure Pack here. So first of all, when you first come up to Azure, you actually have a sign-in page like this. You can see where you can put in your Microsoft ID or your organizational ID, and with Windows Azure Pack as well, we have a very similar experience. This is the Windows Azure Pack pane. It's all HTML5, so this is completely customizable, so you can change this, so this has your corporate identity. And from a website point of view, you can also see within here that we have the Microsoft Azure portal. So I have my website, my virtual machines, for example, And if I look in at my website cloud, this is actually my service management portal, my admin experience within here as well. Okay, so let's just go back. So let's talk about some of the services that are available within Windows Azure. So first of all, we have platform services. So these are traditional services such as PaaS, or Platform as a Service, and these consist of websites, the service bus to give you a reliable messaging platform, and also databases. Windows Azure Pack, like Windows Azure, supports both SQL and MySQL databases, as a lot of common applications support these two database backend. And the self-service PaaS element allows me to be able to have standalone websites, both shared or reserved. Scalable website roles, and all of these are automatically attached to databases. And a real common thing that I get asked in here is kind of what's the difference between the shared or the reserved roles. Well, we'll talk about that a little bit later on when we actually look at that from a demo point of view, and I'll give you an explanation of the difference between them. So Windows Azure Pack websites, what does this bring to the table? Well, first of all, it's extremely scalable. It's multi-tenant. So with the service provider framework, we create a tenant stamp for the user that's coming in. It's secure web hosting because of this multi-tenant nature. We can scale both horizontally and vertically. So I can kind of scale out via number of instances, but also scale up in terms of number of nodes that I'm running, or cores. And it's proven at cloud scale, and I've got some stats in a little while that we'll talk about as well. There's also built-in automation, and the automation lowers onboarding costs and streamlines self-service by automating a lot of the provisioning things that normally you would have to do manually in an on-premise situation. Also as well, very important if we're going to provide a true private cloud, is being able to do automated metering and throttling of resources as well as being able to provide chargeback and showback, and we'll look at some of the partner offerings later on that provide this. It's also extremely flexible. So Windows Azure Pack has support for PHP, Node.js, Python, ASP.NET, and Classic ASP. It's fully integrated with the Microsoft Web Gallery, and it has a number of open publishing methods and protocols that you can use. So let's talk about the website architecture. So to be able to provide that kind of scale up, scale down type architecture, we have a number of server roles that we have to provision. So we have a website controller. This is kind of one of the first roles that we install, and this provides provisioning and management of other roles that we install within the website architecture. We then have our management server, which actually provides a REST endpoint that we access via our web services and our WAP portal. We then have our worker nodes that actually process the web requests, and we have a worker node for tiering as well that provides a tier 1 and a tier 2, and we also have a work role that provides different scales of tiering once we scale that up. And again, I'll go into a little bit detail on this later on. We then have our front end. This is what accepts a web request and kind of routes the request from the console to the workers. And we then have our publisher, which supports multiple different publishing protocols as well. So a couple of additional dependencies that we have is a file server. This is our website shared storage, and a database. This is where we publish our kind of system information to, and we use SQL for that. For those that are interested, we have a number of different network connections. So our controller, for example, actually talks to our fabric on 8173. So that talks to our front end, our worker, and our publisher and our management layer. The controller also talks to SQL Server via 1433. We then have our controller talks via REST and MB to our file servers, and to our front end work on our publisher, and also to our management layer. And then we have the management layer actually talks down to our file service layer via WinRM. So let's talk about system capacity. Well, scalability wise, Azure Pack's been tested stable with 200 plus workers, and we actually have customers today that are running close on that capacity. In terms of a density, the product team actually tested 10 48 gigabyte workers and supported an average access load of up to 25,000 website for those workers. So a very scalable on-premise platform as well. I talked about the web app gallery, so for those who don't know this will be something, or those that are familiar with Azure will be familiar with this. It's the ability for me to be able to use snippets of JSON code to characterize a particular template. Now, the web app gallery that we use with Azure Pack is exactly the same one as we have with Azure, and it's a customizable self-service gallery. It comes out the box with a number of popular web apps, and also a lot of these templates come automatically with the database integration that's needed. I mentioned about publishing as well and developer type stuff. So source code and developer tools that we support with Azure Pack are things like Codeplex, GitHub, Bitbucket and Dropbox, as well as kind of, as you would expect, Visual Studio and TFS. As I mentioned as well, in terms of the protocols that we support, Node.js, PHP and ASP.NET, and you can also integrate web deploy and FTP, HTTP from a publishing point of view. So this use of familiar tools enables you to kind of synchronize your source code and be able to upload directly to production folders. So let's have a demo of WebPass. So again, I want to kind of jump back to Azure. Now this is the public Azure platform. So and this is really just to drive on this consistency theme. So on the public Azure platform, I'm sure some of you seen this or have MSDN subscriptions that allow you to access that. I can go in, I can create a website, I can have a quick create one, or I can actually go to a gallery. Now with the public Azure, I can kind of go in and I can kind of, for example, pick a WordPress site. If I want to put a blog up there, I give that a quick name. I can choose an existing SQL database. I'll do a new one. I'm just going to choose an existing one. With obviously public Azure, I have things like web scale groups and subscriptions that I have to deal with there. And then I can choose my database. I check a little box there, and then that goes ahead and kind of creates my my database. Now if we look at one that we've done earlier, you can see that I have a kind of dashboard within here. Shows me the status, and within my dashboard I can view connection strings, for example, if I want to connect directly to this website. And you know, PaaS, platform as a service, is a great medium because as a web developer I don't really have to worry about patching the underlying infrastructure or servicing the hardware. I just worry about my application. And some of the great things that we get with Azure is the ability to be able to kind of monitor throughput of my site, connect a HTTP server errors, data in and out. I've also got things like web jobs and configuration. But one of the things that I really do like about PaaS in Azure is I've got this concept of being able to go from a free node with one instance. Free mode is basically running on a shared backend platform, and it's a very entry level offering designed for people who just want to onboard an initial application but don't require a lot of power to it. And then as you kind of you go through the development cycle, you can move to shared. Well, here I can scale out to kind of 6 instances. And basic, I can actually move to a dedicated kind of core, and with a dedicated memory, and I've got a number of different options like medium and large there, so I can actually scale it up. And that's actually moving my application or applications, as you can see here, onto a dedicated instance. And then standard in public Azure actually allows me to do things like set up schedule time, so I can scale up or down my function or base that on CPU, for example, changing my instance count and target CPU on there. So that's kind of the public cloud platform. So let's go and have a look at Azure Pack now. So I'm going to go into my website cloud here, and first of all, this is my service management portal. So this is why I carved this code up, and now I just want to go in and kind of show you what that similar experience. So from an administrator point of view, I can view my website cloud, and my website cloud, as I mentioned earlier on, is made up of a number of different roles. So you can see here I have my controller, file server, front end, management server, publisher, and a couple of web worker roles there that are kind of running on a shared and a reserved. I can view the websites that are running across my my site there, and I can configure things like a default domain. I can configure Windows site certificates and authentication elements within here, as well as kind of where I want to kind of publish my web deploy to, or my FTP deploy to. I can also block a list here and kind of add credentials also as well. So let's go and have a look at what the user experience is here. So as I mentioned, Windows Azure Pack is designed for kind of external hosters as well as enterprise hosters. So we've got two options for security with Windows Azure Pack. One is ASP.NET, so the ASP.NET database, and this is kind of a preferred one by service providers because they don't want to associate their web hosting platform to an AD domain. So you can set up an ASP.NET database, and people just come in and basically log each names, and each email address that comes in gets a unique tenant stamp to it. But for enterprise service providers, a lot of people are deploying ADFS now, so we can integrate with ADFS and allow domain users to provision stuff based on domain membership as well, and then you can bring things like multi-factor authentication and other elements into that, particularly if it's externally facing. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to sign up as a new user here. And the very first thing that you'll see is you get taken on a tour. Now this is a very similar experience if you log on to Azure for the very first time. You get took on Azure. And what I've actually got here is a kind of blank portal here with just my account and all items. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to sign up for a plan. So I'm going to go into my account, I'm going to add a subscription, and plans are kind of like mobile phone plans, for example. They might contain some websites, they might contain some virtual machines and some databases. Well, I actually have you can see here I've got a platinum, a gold, a silver and a bronze, but this is actually just for dev and test. So I'm just going to sign up for a dev and test plan. And actually you can see the screen changes now, and it actually lights up with a number of different types of offerings. Now there's a few third-party offerings in here, but I'm going to talk about them a little bit later on. So let's talk about a website as well, and bearing in mind how we went for Azure and provisioned that website there. So I can create a website. Again, I can do a quick create or a custom create. So I'm going to go to gallery for you. I'm going to kind of show you that similar experience. So as you can see, this is the exact same gallery. The only difference is behind this obviously is my own IIS servers, but I can actually go in to WordPress and I can put a name in here. I can choose to create a new SQL database. You can see I haven't got that element in there which talks about my subscription, because I don't need that. But I've got the same authentication key settings if I want to make that next. And by clicking next, I'm going to actually apply for that. I can give a name to my database. So and I can add an admin name to this. And then I can click to create as well. Now, just while that's deploying in the background, I'm just going to show you a quick create one. So within here, I can simply put a view in here. And I can choose to create a website in there as well. And you can see that's created very quickly. And what I really wanted to show you in here was how you now have the ability to basically download and publish a profile, set up deployment credentials for my site, set up a deployment from a source control here, so I can choose a local Git repository or an external repository. I can also view my virtual IP address. Notice down here as well that I also have my site URL, my FTP hosted name, as well as access to things like FTP diagnostic logs and that as well. And I can also view very clearly how much storage I'm using. I've then got that same monitor element, so when the site's up and running, I can view kind of data in and out. I can configure on here things like my framework version or Windows authentication method or certificates or different domain names or SSL bindings. I can also in here as well scale this out. So as with Azure, some of you might have been thinking that there's 6 and 7 VMs that we've got for the websites function seems a lot, but they actually give you this unique functionality within here that allows you to scale out as well. So we've got kind of intro shared, basic shared, and reserved within Azure. So we've got small, medium, large on that. And basically the difference between these are when you first create a website, the site kind of runs in a free mode, and it means that it shares available computing resources with other subscribers that are also running in shared mode as well. So this is kind of like an entry level offering, and it's designed for service providers to onboard customers prior to upgrading to a paid service with shared or resolve mode. So for example, in your enterprise environment, that might be you allowing developers to build sites but not doing any chargeback or showback with them at that point. So a single instance of the website configured to run in intro shared will provide limited performance when compared to other configurations, but can still provide sufficient performance to complete development tasks or proof of concept type work. Your next kind of mode, which is kind of your basic shared within here, this uses a very low cost scaling model that provides a little bit more performance than free mode. Tenants can dynamically change a website to shared mode, and then in the scale tab, and then they can actually move up the number of instances that they want, for example, in there. So I've actually got this set to the default, but you would probably typically put this down to 10 or 20 instances. So it only takes seconds to apply that shared mode, and it's almost kind of seamless to the end user as well. And then you're simply in that new mode. So, unlike free mode or intro shared, a website running shared mode supports the ability to receive mapping from multiple custom domain names as well. That adds another benefit. And then the actual reserved website mode actually changes the website and allows it to scale up to run on a single dedicated core that has access to additional memory, and you could kind of choose to have different memory elements on these small, medium and large. And it will actually provide more consistent performance than a website configured as kind of intro shared or basic shared. And also with Reserve, you can specify the size of the website, small, medium, or large. And obviously, a website configured with a larger reserving sensor will perform better under load. And again, you would have different chargeback elements that you would charge the end user when you're doing this. But it really gives you kind of that option to be able to kind of scale through and offer different kind of offerings to your end users. Okay, so and again that's kind of that's moved me up now, and I've got that kind of on my small instance in there as well. So as you can see, overall it offers you a very kind of interesting. You can see there's my free one that I've got there, and there's my default one that I've got there too. Okay. So let's go back and take a look at a few more slides. So we have the next element after platform services is really infrastructure services. So this bucket for me covers a number of areas. It covers both database service, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but also virtual machines and virtual networks. And this is probably one of the areas that I think a lot of my customers are getting the most benefit out of Windows Azure Pack. And this is typically type IaaS type services. So with self-service IaaS, we have standalone virtual machines. We have scalable virtual machine roles, and all of these are attached to virtual networks. So let's explain a little bit. So you probably saw in some of the other sessions today, a few of the guys talk about virtual network isolation. So this is the ability to be able to isolate virtual machines. And also isolate the networks that they run on. Well, one of the unique elements that Azure Pack brings to the table as well is we can also isolate the security via the tenant stamp. So also as well, a common implementation with Windows Azure Pack is a network virtualization gateway, and this is actually the bridge between virtual machine networks and physical networks. And there is a multi-tenant VPN gateway solution that's built into Server 2012 R2 that will have been talked about in one of the other sessions. And this is integral for seamless connectivity, and it actually does mean that not only can we isolate at the back end from a virtualization point of view, but from a service provider point of view, I can have multiple subnets coming in that might even be the same, and I can separate them at the gateway together as well. This also supports things like BGP for dynamic routes update, and it's multi-tenant aware NAT for internet access, and this is quite often deployed and used with Windows Azure Pack. So let's jump back over and take a quick look at the PaaS element, the IaaS element. So if we take a look at virtual machines, and again this is in public Azure here, and I'm doing this to show you the consistent experience. So I can basically go in, and again I can go to a gallery, and in Azure I can choose an image from my gallery library here. For example, I can choose a Windows 2012 data center image, and then I click next. I add my virtual machine name in. I can choose a basic or a standard tier, and actually the standard tier in Azure you may not be aware of, but actually supports some pretty large size VMs. I've got a 32 core 448 gigabyte beast there that I can choose up to. I put a username in, and I put a password in too. And you can see here that I've got a DNS name that's being used there, and MVP online. There's an offensive word apparently. Obviously I've got my subscription and my affinity grant and my storage account, and then I choose what protocols I want that to be open with. and I can install a VM agent. I've got some extensions that I can choose in Azure, so I've got a rich array of elements that I can choose from. Now let's go across and have a look at what that kind of experience looks like within Windows Azure Pack. So again, I have virtual machines. I can create a virtual machine role, and I'll kind of talk about the difference between a virtual machine role and a virtual template in a second. So some of you that know VMM will be familiar with the concept of a service template. Virtual machine roles are slightly different. So I'm going to go in and again, I can choose from a gallery. And in my gallery configuration in here, I've got just a couple of servers that I've put up there. Obviously not as rich as the other because I haven't built this out yet. But again, I can choose a Windows Server 2012 image. And by the way, this is exactly the same snippet of JSON code that's used to create the gallery item up in Azure, and that's why we use author roles. So I'm just going to give that online. You can see I've got a few different resources there. I can choose a version if I've got different, and I choose a subscription that I want that to run on. I then click next. Again, I can choose, obviously not as many options as I've got in Windows Azure, but you know, I could, if I've got the environment, scale that right up as I could in Azure. I'm just going to pick an extra small. I've got an operating system disk here, which is a VHDX. I'm going to use a small data disk or a large data disk. I can choose my IP address, whether I want it dynamic. I choose my network. I've only got one added here, and then I choose my administrator username and a password. So I'm just going to take the standard. You can see also in here that it creates a virtual machine pattern name. I can choose to put it in a work group, and I can choose my time zone plus the instance count and the maximum instance count. I'm just going to click next on that. And also as well with that, I've got the ability, as I had before, to actually do a quick create, where I can actually put in my MVP test in here and simply put in a password, and that just takes a pre-configured image in the background to kind of create that virtual machine role. So let's take a look at the back end. So here we have the VM cloud area, and here you can actually see I have a connection to my virtual machine manager server. And actually what I have is a number of private clouds that have been created within Virtual Machine Manager. So these are the kind of basic units of resource that I kind of can dish up in my plans. And if I view into one of them there, I can see the cores used, the RAM, the virtual machines, etc. Now let's look at how I add these to my plan. So in here I have my plans, and these are what are advertised as subscriptions to my end users. And you can see I have a dev and test plan within there, and I have a website cloud. But if I kind of look in on my virtual machine cloud, you can see a number of different options within here, as well as kind of having restrictions on my private cloud. I might also have limits on the number of virtual machines, cores, RAM, storage, and virtual networks. Notice here as well that I also have a megabyte per second network in and a megabyte per second network out if I want to kind of add some kind of quaz on that as well. And then I have site-to-site VPNs per network as well, so I can limit those also. Here I can add my different networks in. I also have some hardware profiles here. I have a large, medium, and small here with a megabyte size on that. And then I've got some virtual machine templates from within Virtual Machine Manager, which I've imported, as well as my gallery items. Remember, we kind of talked about the difference between those two earlier on. I've also got the ability to allow my user to manipulate virtual machines in a number of ways, and also allow the users connect to the console of the virtual machine, and we haven't talked about this, but one of the unique elements of Windows Azure Pack is that rather than connect over a remote desktop like I do with Azure, I can actually connect via a console to a virtual machine, which means I can actually reboot a virtual machine and still stay connected to it as well. And that's particularly useful for things like Linux and Unix as well, which don't have a kind of remote desktop connection to them. Down here as well, I have a couple of custom settings, and probably the bottom one there is the most interesting: enable protection for all virtual machines. Well, this actually allows me to use Hyper-V Replica and Azure Site Recovery Manager to make backups of virtual machines as they're being created, either to another data center location or even to Azure. So let's go back to the presentation. So another quick one that I wanted to touch on as well was database as a service. So I'm going to kind of go straight back into the demo here, and in here you can see as a user I can actually go in and I can very easy create a new database. I can choose a subscription that I want, and I can actually choose an edition that I want. I'm actually running 2 database backends here. So I'm going to choose SQL Server 2012. I choose the authentication method. I create a user, and then I just add a password in here as well. And then that successfully creates a database. Now, this actually creates a database with a unique tenant stamp. So remember we talked earlier on about us using a tenant stamp mechanism with the service provider framework. Well, that actually creates a database on a single instance, but with a very secure tenant stamp that's unique to me. Now, this is really interesting for when you're trying to do SQL consolidation, and one of our biggest movements with customers around Windows Azure Pack is around doing SQL database service, because at the end of the day, your users, what is it that they need? Do they actually always need a VM with a SQL database on? Well, here they can create a database, they can view their server name and username and their connection string. And you know, quite a lot of the time that's all they need, as long as they can get out a database and use that. So you might offer this alongside a virtual machine template that allows them to do a database as well. But it's just some food for thought around kind of some kind of use case scenarios for Windows Azure Pack. So the other thing I wanted to talk about was Windows Azure Pack extensibility. So there's a number of ways that you can extend Azure Pack. You can kind of customize the whole skin around that. You can kind of create your own customer portal, or use an existing customer portal and just access that service management layer or the OData REST API. You can use ADFS to integrate it with Active Directory, and you know, a common thing is to integrate it with your billing system. So I mentioned earlier on that it's about 80 to 90% of the code from Azure. Well, the 20% that's kind of missing is really the whole billing mechanism that Microsoft have around that. And although there is usage metering out the box, Microsoft don't provide any reporting, but that's actually met by the partner ecosystem. So the partner ecosystem add value in a number of areas. So they allow WAP to integrate with commerce, chargeback, and ITSM systems. They enable new services to be provided. So custom resource providers such as Cloud Assert that provide a resource provider into Azure Pack. They deliver gallery items and add tenant value and facilitate consumption, and also improve Fabric service operations like service management automation and you know, integration with System Center and Windows Server. So a couple of partner solutions out there for Azure Pack. So in market today, things like Cloud Cruiser, Grid Pro, Parallels. Cloud Cruiser provides chargeback integration. Grid Pro provides integration into Service Manager, which provides request management. Parallels allows you to integrate kind of with things like Mac OS, and CSC Service Mesh is a cloud brokerish product as well. Some in preview, and it might well be out of preview now, is Extend ASP. Resource providers are available from people like Apprenda, Bluestrike, Cloud Assert I mentioned. Terraria is available at the box now, and that actually provides a very rich customization layer on top of the existing plans and templates. Chakra actually provide integration into Amazon, for example. We're actually creating our own resource providers, hence the info being up there, but there's other providers from Cisco, Five9, Symantec. And from a content gallery point of view, Oracle and Citrix provide gallery content, and infrastructure partners that provide infrastructure around Azure Pack and NetApp and Nutanix that actually provide out-of-the-box kind of WAPs, ready-to-go WAP solutions as well. So let's take a quick look at a couple of partner ecosystem elements here. And actually, you might have seen these in here already. I'm going to kind of look at request management. So GridPro actually provide the ability for me to actually link into Service Manager, and within Service Manager I have a rich service catalog that I've created that has runbooks and workflows behind it, and that can allow me to do anything from create a generic incident request into Service Manager. You know, I can put a title for an issue, it's bust. I can pick a category for that, so it's networking problem, actually a hardware problem. How urgent? Well, it's definitely important to me, and then I can put some alternate contact information in. And then I can submit that, and that actually will submit that directly into Service Manager. I can then actually go and kind of view there how my request is doing. I can see it's active in there, and you know, other things that I can kind of do in Service Manager, which are quite interesting, are I can actually do things like add a user to group or disable an Active Directory account. You know, remove a user from group, do a starter program, recover a folder. For integration with DPM, I can actually create a new SQL database from within here as well. So this might be where I offer a database and I offer a kind of virtual machine with the database on. I've got mailbox management, and I've got kind of you know, private cloud infrastructure elements that I can do there that wouldn't normally be available through Windows Azure Pack. So I definitely recommend you check that out if you've got Service Manager. Other kind of third-party add-ins as well. Five9 Security actually provide antivirus and anti-malware for virtual machines, as well as providing an element of IDS and HIDS as well. And of course, Cloud Cruiser actually provide summary reports. So I'm actually going to show you another couple of partner offerings on my other machine. So here we have Five9 Cloud Security. So this actually allows me to take WAP infrastructure and set firewall rules, add AV protection, add IDS. It also has a network traffic scanner as well, which gives me a really protective solution for my private cloud, and it has full integration with WAP as well. The other one is Cloud Cruiser. Again, we saw that in the WAP console. So here's the Cloud Cruiser console in here, and this allows me to get to grips with different types of billing and different types of service plans that I want to do for customers. So all of them, both of them, really worthwhile kind of viewing and looking into. So finally, I just wanted to close out with I talk about the update releases for Windows Azure Pack. So we've had 4 major releases that added a various number of different updates to Azure Pack. So they're very kind of, you can see here almost every 3 months kind of we've had an update. And actually we have had a UR5 come in, and actually this has mostly been customer feedback. We had a couple of extensions in there, resource governor, some of the stuff being able to create and restore checkpoints on the tenant portal was there in UR5. And future investment areas are you're going to see Azure Pack ported onto the new Azure portal and Resource Manager. So I often get asked, where should I be investing for the future? Or will Azure Pack's going to be around the new Azure Resource Manager, so definitely be looking at ARM. There's going to be consistent APIs with a focus on IaaS, compute network and storage, and there's going to be a deeper connection between clouds to enable cross-cloud and hybrid scenarios as well. So finally, why Windows Azure Pack? Well, Windows Azure Pack is enterprise class. It's built on the familiar foundations of Windows Server and System Center, so it's built on technology that you work with and is tried and tested. It allows you to do isolated virtual networks for multi-tenant workloads. It's extensible, has integration, and it's Windows Azure code running in your data center, giving you a very scalable virtualization and management platform. It's very simple and cost effective. There's no current cost for downloading Azure Pack. So it's very simple service delivery for multi-tenant infrastructure. Obviously your only costs are in kind of your Windows Server and your private cloud infrastructure that you put there. It's out of the box infrastructure and application service offering, standardized templates, it's got an automation platform in it, it's got advanced Server 2012 features on standard hardware, it's very easy VM and web application portability, broad application support, and broad cross development kind of support as well. So next steps is to take the product and get it deployed and have a play with it. If you want further help, please reach out to me directly. There's my contact details on the screen, and yes, I've put my mobile phone up there. You can also contact me through the Infomon website, via my blog. Please, if you've liked this session and want to see more of them, make sure that you kind of reach out to the UK MVP Cloud hashtag and find out more about the MVP community. It's a great community of people that just are there to want to help you. Also as well, get your free trial of Azure from the link there also. And finally, if you want to see a little bit more, invite your IT managers to a Transform the Data Center workshop. I actually run a number of these along with a number of other partners. So if you want a deeper dive experience, please kind of reach out and invite your IT managers now that you've got excited about it to this workshop. And thank you very much for your continued support, and hope to talk to you soon. Thanks.